Okay, so the hippocampus and emotional memory. So in the previous lesson, we looked at how the release of cortisol is going to affect the improve memory, and now we look at actually how prolonged, so acute stress will release cortisol, help memory. Now we're going to look at how prolonged chronic stress might damage the hippocampus and have a negative effect on memory. Heads up, this is just a good review activity. They write terms on sticky notes, and then they walk around and they ask, yes no questions. Who am I? They can only ask one person one question. Get people walking, bit of movement. Joseph Ledoux explains about the amygdala. This could be a really good recap, and then they can do an extend, connect and extend here. So what do they already know that he said, and what's at least one new thing they learned about the amygdala. Then this, I think it's a very good short animated film. I mean, I only put videos that I watch myself in class in these unit plans. This animated film summarizes how stress affects the brain, and I think there are some questions in the space in their workbook for them to write some notes. And this is what they're getting from it. So a little bit of stress is fine, as we saw, right? It can be good, but too much stress for too long can have really bad consequences. And how do we know? So here's get them to hypothesize. So we know that this happens. Cortisol causes changes in the size of the hippocampus, and then ask them how do they think they found this out. Just before we get into talking at the students. So here we talk about the relationship between stress, cortisol, and the brain. And in the activities files, so this is domino. So students have a domino, so it's got one card, two pieces of information on it, and they have to connect the cards. And so, and when they, by the time they finish connecting all the cards, it's made the answer to the to this guiding question. How a hyper-responsive amygdala explains cognitive symptoms of PTSD, and they can write their answer in the workbooks. So that's that activity can be used for any type of anything we need to get them to make lots of sequences of explanation. But that's the activity there for them. And this could be an exit ticket if you want. That's a pretty full-on lesson, so you might not have time. But why are we learning this? Why is it important to know about the effects of stress on memory? And that's the end of topic 3. And so the key here, what we're looking at, how a hyper-responsive amygdala might explain cognitive symptoms of PTSD, is the cognitive symptoms are related to memory. And if we have a hyper-responsive amygdala, we're going to keep releasing cortisol over a long period of time. And by keeping on releasing cortisol, it's going to damage the hippocampus. And the research that shows that is Sapolsky's research, which is in this section in the textbook, on the monkeys. And one group had cholesterol, one group had cortisol. So this I think can elaborate on how emotion affects cognition. We've got Buchanan and Lavallo. It can improve it. And Sapolsky says maybe it can damage memory because of the effects on the hippocampus. And this example can be used in so many things. We can look at the role of hormones, animal research, emotion and cognition. We can also look at evolutionary explanations of behavior, and there's a couple more that I will remember as soon as I stop recording. Anyway, that's the end of this topic, and then we get into looking at more etiologies of PTSD.